Hello folks, welcome back to the channel. I can't believe it's been over a year since I first reviewed Moza's flagship force feedback yoke, the AY210. I've probably had it for about, a year, 3 or 4 months now. I think it's a good time to reflect on it, talk about it, and give you my updated thoughts and opinions about what it's like living with it. And also, I want to talk about something that I really do disagree with some of the wider flight sim YouTube community. So that might be a bit of a controversial one there, because I do strongly disagree with something, and it really does actually confuse me as well. So anyway, we'll get into that. But first of all, what is the Moza AY210? Well, it's Moza's flagship force feedback yoke, and I believe, if I remember, might get this wrong, it has 9 Newton meters of roll force with 210 newtons of push-pull force. That's the elevator. That means this is a very powerful yoke, very, very powerful. Probably even overkill, really, but because of that, you do feel the forces, absolutely. And we'll get to that now. The great thing about a force feedback yoke, folks, if you haven't got one, is it gives you that connective experience of being in an aircraft. And it's not just about the, obvious things such as the vibrations of touchdown or, feeling like turbulence and that kind of thing. It's about the air rushing over your ailerons. It's the hardware trim that you need to stay on top of because of the air pressure, which means, just like in the real world, when you actually trim this aircraft out, or any aircraft, not just the Commander, it will be a lot easier for you because you'll actually feel what the aircraft is doing without looking at your dials and constantly making nadgery sort of, movements because you cannot keep the aircraft stable. And actually a good example here, if I just sort of stay at the altitude I'm at now and just trim out those forces, and we'll get to about 2,000 feet, that's fine. Just look at that. I can feel that the aircraft is now trimmed out. Look at that. I'm not even doing anything now. And that is thanks to force feedback. You're not constantly trying to fight the controls. You don't have to keep looking for visual references. You can just feel it through your hands. You feel the prop wash and the elevator droop when you're on sort of the taxiway and you're doing your run up. It will sort of move accordingly. Or of course, when you're going really quick, you're going to feel that pressure build up on the wings as well. Which is just one of those things, folks, that when you've experienced force feedback, it's true, there's no going back, there really isn't. And when the AY210 was first released, there was a few things that I was quite critical about. Namely, that hardware trim I've just explained. We didn't have that at that point in time because the software was very rudimentary at that point, and the firmware. But Moza did say it was coming, and to be fair, they definitely stuck to their promise, and hardware trim became available relatively quickly, actually. A lot quicker than I was expecting. So that was great. And since then, the software, all of the options that are available, the profiling, just the, getting into all those fine details of every single effect you possibly can imagine that an aircraft can give you, is now in that software. And it's almost become a little bit too complicated, in my opinion. For someone like me, that's actually a positive. I like as much granular control as possible. But I think for some people, the software will be overwhelming. Absolutely. I think that might be a bit of a positive for some people and a negative for other people. But overall, it has to be said that the software that supports the AY210 has just got better and better and better. Really quite incredible. So those little nitpicky things I talked about in my review a year ago, they've all been solved now, and the hardware trim works really, really well. It's very, very good. I'm doing it now. At the moment, we're just in a bit of a pocket of air. I can feel that I need to just put a bit more pressure on that elevator. And now I've just trimmed out again, and I can just let off the yoke and enjoy the ride. And I don't have to keep looking at my vertical speed because I can feel it through my hands on the yoke, like the real world. And I am quite lucky that I have flown in real aircraft quite a bit, you know. I'm not a real pilot, folks, but I have flown a lot, and I've actually landed a few times with an instructor next to me as well, because I am tempted to do my PPL. But quite honestly, I think flight simulation has got to a point now where it kind of scratches that itch for me. It really does. Without that responsibility, you know, that you have if you mess up, well, it's game over, do you know what I mean? But anyway, I digress. So, not only that, I do feel that the overall effects of the yoke have really improved as well, such as the vibrations, the latency, which is hardly any, but that has almost been resolved now, because I've always noticed there's just a little bit of latency at times when communicating with the sim. I think that's been resolved. That was something else I moaned about in the early days. The only things that I think I could sort of nitpick about, I suppose, is the yoke itself. And thankfully, you can change it. And I'm hoping that Moza are still working on more general aviation style yokes, because this one, while it feels great, don't get me wrong, it feels very comfortable, it's kind of like a bit of a hybrid of a more gaming kind of focused design and more of an airliner type design, all in one. It's a bit weird. I would rather have a more premium option for a general aviation style, maybe 172 or maybe Beechcraft type of yoke design. That would be very nice. And I do feel the buttons on the top, while they're a little bit plasticky feeling, in fairness, they are solid and they haven't sort of, you know, broken or anything. And as you can imagine, this yoke does get a lot of use. It really does. Now, there's another thing I want to talk about here, and that is the smoothness of this yoke is superb. There is no cogging at all with this yoke. There really isn't. And you know what? I actually said to Moza, because you might notice in some of the shots that the yoke looks a bit different. Well, my pre-production yoke had a metal shaft. And I was wondering to myself, does that yoke, does it feel smoother because it's some sort of like handmade pre-production version? And I was wondering, maybe the newer ones or the mass-produced ones do have cogging, or they don't feel as good. Well, I'm glad to say I do have another AY90 here on my motion rig, and this is from, you know, well, the ones you can buy now, basically. And it feels every bit as good as that first yoke did. It feels superb. I love the fact that there's just nothing there. Doesn't feel like this mechanical friction or anything in the way of me and flying. It's very, very, very impressive that Moza have managed to pull this off. And that's really probably mostly thanks to it being belt driven. And inside, as I'll show you now, it's very high end and has all metal parts. So, in essence, in the year I've had this now, I've had no problems with it at all. I'm sure there will be some, you know, stories out there, and please do let me know in the comments below. But from my perspective, using it a lot, it's been my daily driver yoke ever since I reviewed it. Now, I do actually love my flightsim.com Scylla 60. I do also feel that the hardware trim and the overall feel of that yoke feels just a little bit more convincing. But it is a huge yoke. It really is, and it does have a bit of cogging. So it kind of gives with one hand, but takes away with the other. And I think, as an overall package, the Moza AY210 for me is the better option. Not to mention, it's littered with lots of switches and buttons, which I don't have bound at the moment, but, you know, they do feel very nice. And I love how they've got a, you know, a gear lever on it and everything. It's a metal construction, especially the case as well. It's very, very well made. It feels like this thing will just last forever, you know? And I do remember back in the day the CH series of yokes. Do you remember those, folks? In fact, I've still got mine, a CH Eclipse yoke. I still have that in the garage somewhere. That thing has lasted 20-25 years probably. In all honesty, this kind of feels like it will last as long as that. I don't know if it will, but it feels solid and as new as the day I tried it, you know? So, yeah. I think overall it's a very easy recommendation. But let's now get to the perhaps controversial thing. This is just my personal opinion, folks, okay? But this is the thing that I find interesting. Recently, you've probably seen, if you haven't already, I'll have a link in the notes below or be on the channel somewhere. I have reviewed Moza's more entry-level AY90 force feedback yoke, which provides 4.2 Newton meters of roll and 90 newtons of push-pull force, which actually is still plenty, really, apart from, in my opinion, the roll axis. When you're flying really fast and you're feeling that pressure against the wings, I noticed a difference there. I think that extra bit of power, because this has 9 Newton meters, does make a difference. I also feel things like when landing, or if you really got those effects dialed up, you definitely notice the difference in power. You definitely do. However, I do feel that the AY90 overall has enough power. It really does. But one thing I don't understand, and this has really confused me, I don't get this at all, and I'm not trying to disrespect any other YouTuber. I'm not saying they're lying. They're absolutely not, because I think people who have reviewed the Moza, the ones I've seen, I actually am a massive fan of their channels, you know. So this is not like a bit of a dig at them or anything like that. Don't see it that way. I'm not trying to say they're lying. I'm not at all. This is just my personal opinion based upon using many different force feedback yokes over the, you know, God, years that I've been doing this, as well as just flight simming and flying in real life. But I personally feel that the AY90 has quite a bit of cogging on that roll axis, because it is gear driven on that roll axis. I'll just show you a shot now of the inside of the AY90. Now that's fine, by the way. I'm not really complaining about that as a negative, because it is a lot cheaper than the AY210, so it makes sense. And overall, I don't think it'll be too much of an issue for people, especially new to force feedback yokes. But what confuses me is that there are some reviews out there, and I just find this really interesting, that state they prefer the AY90 over the 210. I just think, I'm scratching my head. I just don't understand that at all, because in my opinion, and this is what all this is, and I've said it loads of times now, folks, so if you're still going to be snotty in the comments and moan at me for my opinion, then that's your own problem. But I just feel that the extra elevator travel, this has 150 millimeters versus 95, that does make a difference. Absolutely, it really does. As well as that smoothness in the roll, as well as the extra better build quality overall, makes this the better yoke. But then it should be, because it's more money. But it really is quite a difference, in my opinion. If you do have the money, I would absolutely save up for the 210, because it's just the better yoke, and it's an investment. This is going to last you a very, very long time. A very, very long time. So really, that is the thing I disagree with the most, is the fact that, well, there is cogging with the AY90, and I'm the only one who really mentioned it. It's fine for the price point, don't get me wrong, but is it better than the 210? Not even close. Honestly, there's quite a difference between them both, in my opinion. I do think, though, that the AY90, with its smaller footprint, is great for desktops, and maybe even for my motion rig, because I am going to use it still, don't get me wrong, I'm going to use it, but at the moment I'm finding it hard to tear myself away from the AY210, because it just works. It's a really fabulous yoke. So yeah, that will do, folks. I think that's kind of my 1 year review and reflection on the AY90 as well, how it compares to it. I do have a very detailed review of the AY90 and comparison against the CLS60 and 210 as well on the channel, which is a bit more edited. Obviously, this is just a bit of a chat about everything. But yeah, I do respectfully but strongly disagree with those who prefer the AY90 over the 210. I just don't understand it unless I'm missing something. So please do let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, folks. I really appreciate it. We've been flying around Chicago, by the way, in the Black Square Commander. And I'll see you again very soon. Take care and bye for now.